I was checking your posts on your webpage, on your Instagram page, and I came across a sentence, one of your very, very early posts. You have posted a sentence under it. I'm going to read the sentence, and I want you to explain a little bit about this sentence for us. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, here's the sentence. The sentence says, history is all about people on the move. Its mirror reflects our eternal struggle for the triumph of life and awareness over death and oblivion. The victory that will remain ours as long as we are alive and aware of our common biography. There are human feelings, hopes, and aspirations behind any pottery shard, behind an imprint of bare foot left on the steps of a deserted sanctuary, behind a figurine carved against the evil eye, behind a word written in clay or stone in a language forgotten. They could fill the hearts of those who are conscious enough to focus on them and recognize their true value. It's such a beautiful sentence, and it's really heartwarming. How did you come to this beautiful perspective on history?
Thank you for bringing it here, because I guess I'll need to say a couple of words about myself, because I'm more a researcher, an academic researcher, than an artist. And basically that's where my perspective comes from. I'm deeply fond of the ancient Iranian culture in general, and the Elamite legacy more specifically. And for years, my research has focused on this remarkable society. And outside of academic circles, almost no one knows about Ilham, about Ilham's splendor. So I, apart from my studies, I began creating some visual interpretations alongside my research, and surprisingly, these artworks have become my most visible contribution to the field so far. And the point is that in this sense, creating some pieces of art is very helpful for me, because it's a space where I can step outside the frameworks of academia, as research, any sort of research, demand precision, while art lets me feel the past rather like just analyze it. It's all about feelings, and in a way it's another form of understanding. In a way it's my act of gratitude, because it is some sort of a dialogue with ancient people on a human level, like thanking them, letting them know they're visible, they're not forgotten. And this connection is very calming and very important for me.
Well, that's exactly why I asked this question, because the way you have portrayed all these beautiful pieces, it's very, very humanized. And that's a perspective that I can't see in archaeological studies, because when we talk about archaeology, we are talking about a science of dead things and broken stones and broken pieces of clay. When you look at it through your art, it becomes almost like a family album of an ancient person. How did you first decide to create them as humans rather than architectural objects?
Maybe I should start focusing on how I came up with like my first works based on some ancient topics. And in fact, it happened like not all of a sudden, but quite surprisingly for me, because there is indeed some sort of a starting point for me. And it's quite a personal story, but I think this channel and like this interview series is a perfect place for me to share it. My fascination with Iran and Mesopotamia actually started quite long ago, back in school. I don't have any blood ties to the region, for those who are not that familiar with my works, social media, whatever. I'm a researcher based in Moscow, in Russia, and Russian researcher focusing on some ancient Middle Eastern cultures. Maybe it's not that common, and I often get asked a lot about that. And the point is that it's a love, and like all real love, my fascination with all these topics is somewhat irrational. So like it grew from pure aesthetics, from how the cultures resonated with me. And after school, I went on to study linguistics and intercultural communication for my bachelor's, because that's what touches and like what fascinates me most, how different cultures interact, enrich each other. And then one summer after my second year, I suddenly found myself with a lot of free time. That's not something that happens often in my life, and I needed to come up with something to do something with it. And normally in situations like that, I either draw or like write something. I don't have any formal training in either art or literature. It's just a hobby. But that time I decided to write, not even to draw, but like to write a short piece of fiction first, set in antiquity, and then to make some illustrations. It's like exclusively as a matter of hobby, and it sounded like a good plan, but I decided to choose a historical setting. And I thought, oh, well, Achaemenid Persia, or like maybe Parthia or Sasania and Iran, or like whatever. The Achaemenids felt like too mainstream. Sorry for saying that. The Sasanians, also mainstream and kind of too late. And Parthia is a way too Hellenistic to my taste. So then it just hit me, oh, well, I love the Bronze Age. I love it most. And why not write about Bronze Age then? Bronze Age run, about Eilam, all these things. And at that point, I knew almost nothing about the region. I saw some occasional material, heritage pieces like whatever architecture, sculptures, but I wasn't I didn't have any expertise on that, and I decided to focus on this. On all the things, because in general services it usually gets just a few pages, because it's something that is not that explored and not that covered, and it's just some obscure chapter before like real Iranian history starts in most of general service. In a on Iranian history specifically. And as for assyriological works, Ilham is often portrayed as this constant irritating troublemaker, which creates all this mess. But like its own perspective, its internal worldview is barely even touched. And I thought, great, that's the thing. I'll just find a solid book on pre-Achaemenid Iran specifically, and I figure it all out, and then I'll come up how to put it into fiction, how to like humanize it. And then it turned out, to my deep surprise, that there was only one comprehensive work available in my native language, in Russian, which is actually translation of Walter Hind's classic The Last Word of Ilham, published in the early 70s. And I read it in one evening, and I thought, oh, well, it's fine, but it's not enough. I need something to go deeper. And back then, we did not yet have these excellent, up-to-date English language stories that exist today. So, like, the only detailed work available was The Archaeology of Ilham by Daniel Potts, which is marvelous. And I dove into this book at that point, and I realized that I definitely knew nothing, even less than I thought, because his conclusions were being challenged on so many points and so many levels, and I could not stop at all. I had to know, like, what the truth is, where the truth lay, and well, on the academic level, I'm still trying to figure that out somehow in my research. But as for the creative side, I do remember your question. Like, the art, I'm mostly known for. I did end up writing that story. It was a short story about a clash between Elamites and Mesopotamians, and I, like, illustrated it, creating three pieces of art, three illustration of the heroes, both the Elamite side and the Mesopotamian side. And since that, I understand. I understood at that point that that's what really inspires me. And even when I have some time, I've kept drawing different scenes from the ancient Near East that randomly come to my mind, or maybe somehow inspired by the works, by the academic works. It could be like a single footnote that provides me with some boost of inspiration, with some plots, some ideas of how, like, human life looked like, and how we can make it more feasible, more real.
Look, I am extremely fascinated by your story because, as you said, there's not a lot of literature out there about Iran in general. And even a lot less when you talk about a period of history in Iran that even the Iranians, probably most Iranians, don't have any idea about. As you said, in Iran, in the general view, history begins with the Achaemenid period. So no one knows
Exactly.
before.
Exactly.
And what you're doing is amazing. But I have read your texts and I am familiar with your literature. It's amazing. It's fascinating. And I can't wait for you to publish your fiction, because I can only imagine how beautiful you can make up that story and what amazing literature you're going to be using there. Obviously, you are from Russia. You have great culture of great writers. So, and I am fascinated by the way you write as well as the way you draw. One of the things that fascinated me very early on when I saw your works was this recurring image of the mother and the daughter, that in some cases you had some real architectural relief and stone in some locations that it was actually depicting the mother and the daughter. But then you have gone a little bit beyond that and you have used your own imagination depicting the mother and the daughter in a lot of different environments and scenarios. Is there any significant story about this mother and daughter?
Not sure there is a specific story or something like that. It's just more about that I'm interested in some pages of the history that are not that covered, and that somehow are beyond the common vision, the vision of the global audience. And as for women and children, these are the heroes that we can rarely met on the pages of history overviews, because most of history books are dedicated to some political matters, to the warfare, and so as the drawings, which is maybe not that obvious, but it's still the reality, because lots of, I would even say, like most number of historical drawings were created as the illustration to the respective books, or maybe they're inspired by some products of mass culture, such as video games and movies and so on. And these pieces of art, pieces of culture, are representative in terms of like manly world, in terms of powerful rulers and fierce battles and all these things, which are also worth of attention. I don't have any doubts about that. But as like woman myself, I feel a like, special connection to this like hidden world that we do not know that much about, but we should definitely focus on more to understand better, and gradually learn more about. And to my pleasure, there are indeed more academic papers on how the childhood was perceived by the ancients, and how their life like could be like imagined, recreated by us. And I think that it's an interesting field. It's an obscure field, but an important one for like for us as fellow human beings. That is something we should think more about. And I'm not a professional artist, once again. So it's just my modest contribution to this very topic.
The first impression that general audience like myself gets from your work, like this, the depiction of the normal daily life in the ancient times, is all of a sudden you get this sudden shock that you realize that they were humans. You know, they had feelings, they were living normal lives. Not all of them were kings and conquerors and soldiers. They were women, they were household, they were children that they used to play on the streets. And this is a very fascinating sort of the history that, as you said, it's always invisible, because it's always overshadowed by the wars and the story of the great leaders and so on. But before I ask you a few questions about Ilham, I want to ask you, because in the text that I read you from your own post, you were talking about our common biography. I want to know, how far do we have to go back in history before Iran and Russia find their common ancestors?
In general, like all of us as humanity have our like own like common roots, both genetically and surely culturally, because all the cultures are interrelated in this or that way, intertwined. And as for I don't know, genetic point of view, maybe that's all about like Indo-Europeans in general, because both of like the languages, maybe, like, I don't know. I would not say like nations, because both Iran and Russia are like multicultural countries. but in terms of our joint language heritage, like we are surely, I don't like cousins, not brothers, but at least like our shared legacy could be traced in the way we speak, in like common like lexical background, and this linguistic like affiliation, which can be traced up to in the European language. But I would not really concentrate on that as some sort of, I don't know, motivation or something, because as creator who tries to post something in social media, I often come across some weirdos who are too much obsessed with some sort of ancient legacy, as they project it to they somehow get focused on that, because they need something to be proud of, and maybe they need something to get more sense to like what they're like doing, whatever, and due to that, they're like way too proud of their ancient ancestors, like either real ones or like imagined ones, or like the ones they wanted to see as their ancestors, like regardless of what the historical accuracy and the historical reality is. And I'd say that it's slightly intimidating, and I would avoid to focus on this discourse when writing something like globally, because it's not that important what like background, what cultural background someone comes from, what's their like real culture, native culture, what is their adopted culture, or whatever, because in the globalized world of today, like everything is deeply like multi-dimensional. But the question is like what like really like makes sense like to you on some personal, some aesthetic level. And I believe that when focusing on history, everyone could find something, some chapter, some side of a story that would resonate with them specifically.
Beautiful answer. So in the European languages, you said we are from the same family of Indo-European languages. Is that correct? Very interesting. How many times have you traveled to Iran?
7, I guess. I
7
didn't
times.
count. Honestly, I think 7.
Let's go to Ilham now.
Uh-huh.
I have a few questions about Ilham.
Okay.
The first question that I have about Ilham is, what was the general interaction between Ilham and Mesopotamia? Was it always wars? Was it always a competition about resources? Or were there times when it was difficult to differentiate between someone from Ilham and someone from Mesopotamia?
That's a good question. A lovely one, because for most of those who are even aware of the existence of Elam, it's presented as the opponent, the like eternal enemy, arch enemy of Mesopotamia. But the reality is, of course, much more complicated than this like one-side perception, because when there are two cultures next to each other, their relation could not be limited to their position only. Of course, there were trade connections on different levels in different eras. Everything changed through the course of history, because these cultural worlds have been neighbors for lots of centuries, for like thousands years, and of course their relations were highly dynamic. But as for their nature, there has there have always been these economic transactions, trade relations, as I've just said, and of course, there were some like, interconnection on a personal level, like be it the intermarriages between the ruling families of the cities, of major like political centers of both sides, and just on a level of the population, because we can trace the onomastics, which is like the corpora of names, and we can find lots of compound names over there, which can consist of the Elamite component, for instance, like the name of the Elamite god or goddess, and some Sumerian or Akkadian lexics, which indicate, or vice versa, of course, which indicates that these cultures were connected, and when something is connected and something is interrelated, it produces something new, and we can trace it on many levels, including the linguistic one. And one more thing is that, of course, thanks to some economic routine, there were cultural exchanges as well, and the technologies, the flow of technologies, heavily dependent on these like, material foundations, is one more dimension that unites both Elam and Mesopotamia, because once again we can notice when where the Elamite craftsmen, for example, borrowed some Mesopotamian ideas, Mesopotamian technologies, and adapted them to their reality, to their goals. And we can also find the examples of Mesopotamians making use of some ideas, some iconography that originally belonged to their eastern neighbor.
When Ashurbanipal attacks Elam, the Susa actually, not Elam, and you know the famous relief that they later found in Iraq in Ashurbanipal's palace. It depicts a very, very bloody and cruel battle between his army and the way they basically killed the Susa, the soldiers from Elam, and they destroyed their buildings and their ziggurats. And he's very, very focused on the way some characters you see on that relief, that they're thrown into the river, Some of them are dragged underground, tied to carts, and there's physical damages that are being made to the buildings, and it's a very unique way that he was trying to make a statement that I destroyed this culture altogether. Why was Ashurbanipal so decisive about making sure that every aspect of this deposition, every aspect of this war was captured and remembered like that?
I would not go that deep to emphasize that Assyrians were that unique in displaying violence, because violence has always been present in visual imagery of Mesopotamia and Egypt and neighboring cultures. Maybe the Assyrian iconography just made most vivid and most active use of that in their propaganda. Sorry for using this word from definitely other discourse, but it just like describes it better than any other terminology, because that's basically what it is. It's a royal propaganda. It's the way for them to for Neo-Assyrian rulers, Assurbanipal and his forefathers, to claim their power, to present it to both their adversaries and to their children, to future kings that will inherit this this power, like this superpower of their time. And I think that if we like look through the some other pieces of art, we will find some other examples of cruelty in both Egyptian visual heritage and of Karen visual heritage. For instance, this famous relief of steel of Naramsin depicting him and his warriors like climbing upon like the bodies of their dead adversaries, and if we reflect upon it, we also, as for Ilham, we don't have many examples of such scenes, but like there is still a relief which dates back to pretty much the same time that like correspond to the clash with Assyrians, or maybe a bit later. So it could be either completely or partially like be influenced by the Assyrian art. Like it depicts some warriors which like attacking like some mountain population, and I don't know whether there is indeed some connection to Assyrian imagery they could be inspired of, or they came up to that simultaneously on their own. But there are indeed some other depictions of that kind. The question is why the Assyrian visual culture has like developed it to that scale. And regardless of like what the answer is, and I'm definitely not an expert on the Syrian art and some specifics of Syrian culture. I'd like to point out that it has nothing like to do with specifically, because the Syrians, the Syrian kings depicted like all their foes, all their adversaries in pretty much the same way, and like the same level of cruelty, like both like Urartans, Arabs, like whoever, even when it came to the clashes between like central powers, Asurbanipal himself and like his brother and his supporters, like they were also fine with depicting them humiliated, killed, and so on. So it's just like the general visual strategy for the Syrian culture to depict their adversaries. But as for Elam, it's just like that. There were more wars and more battles be depicted. So maybe that's why it seems that there is like most of Assyrian reliefs are all about like Elamites being conquered, being defeated, but it's not exactly like that.
But maybe they came to the conclusion that, as you said, the royal propaganda plays a great role in persuading the nation that they're the best nation, or they have a very strong army. So they may have been using that to recruit more soldiers or give them feeling of safety to their citizens by depicting those images. But it's an interesting statement that you make, that it's not specific to Ilan. It's just a visual sort of a visual
Standard.
standard, as you said. I want to ask a bit about Ilham itself now. Can you imagine, or can you describe an Elamite society from the power and political perspective? How would they manage their cities and country?
Well, it's extremely hard, especially because this is one of the like, long-lasting societies, or like a sequence of societies, and of course, in different era, they had their own specifics in terms of political organization, in terms of how the cities were like developed, and like the life were organized like in general. As for like we cannot even speak about some sort of like centralization like universally, like claiming that like the Elamite kingdom did something in I don't know 15th or like 16th century BC, because there were some coexisting centers of power, and at the same time there could be some policies coexisting and like trying to compete for this power simultaneously. And the Elamites established some sort of centralization. We can't like really speak about centralization like in our perception, because it wasn't like that. Central state is something that comes quite late, and of course, there was no idea of something that we perceive as a state nation of modernity. All these things are a product of modernity. But as for some like general framework, some idea of what makes Elam special in the sense of social organization, political organization. It has mostly been decentralized, I would say, both in, of course, like in the third millennium BC, like the entire Mesopotamia was mainly decentralized, but the Elamite society went further, and even when it comes to like the second millennium, the middle of the second millennium, the establishment of the like so-called kingdom of Susa and Anshan, there still were some local centers of power, and central powers had to deal with that, had to come up with some sort of balance, some networks of contact to make this system work, not to lose their central power, and to let some regions that were, for instance, like out of their direct reach, develop in some autonomous way, autonomous manner. So there is indeed the tradition of this like self-management in specific regions, especially in mountainous regions, because of course when trying to reconstruct some idea of social history, when trying to identify some glimpse of like the way it could be organized, we need to put special emphasis and special attention to the things that are evident and how to say it, objective, because like and one of those is of course the geography, like the geographical framework, the reality they lived in, because that is something that puts their like restraints. And when it comes to the westland, the land with a difficult relief, with all these mountains and valleys and isolated locations that were still somehow managed from the capital cities, from the royal cities. Of course, it would be impossible without this network of political contacts, political establishments, and some sort of self-management. We can see it in the way how royal power was organized in the very beginning of the second millennium BC, with this three-partite structure of the Elamite central power, and like later on in the times of Middle Elamite kingdoms, and even later when it comes to Neo-Elamite state, the adversary of Assyrians just mentioned, the Elamite state was already like more or less centralized one. it could not anymore be called a confederation of some kind, but it still preserved some way of self-management, to the extent that sometimes some of the regions that were part of a global Ilam, like the kingdom of Hidali or like the land of Hidali, were called like separate kingdoms in the academic literature, but like recent works um, pointed out that their connections were more complex, and uh, they were still a part of a single policy, but with some sort of autonomy.
Do we have any evidence of the role of women in the political system in Iran?
Rarely hear their voices. I mean, if we investigate the body of royal inscriptions and economic documents mentioned in the rulers, we seldom come across the names of women who would act um, um, as like the primary actors, but there is still quite a solid evidence of the specific roles women had in political system in the royal family. That is something that we indeed have evidence for. For instance, we have some cases, like I'd even say relatively many cases of women to be depicted on the reliefs alongside the like actual rulers, kings, their husbands, their fathers. We have these pieces of art indicating that the Elamites put some special attention to royal women, that they played a prominent role in the ritual life, in the religious life of the royalty, of the royal house, that they played a specific role in the way how the power was transmitted from one generation to another. Uh, and I would not go deep into details when it comes to the inheritance issues, because that is a big topic, and that is something quite specific to Ilam. So I think I'll skip like this thing, just like briefly mentioned it. But as for the role of women, more specifically, I would rather provide a couple of examples from the life of Middle Elamite dynasties. First, we have this beautiful sculpture, beautiful bronze statue of the Queen Napirasu, which was not, in fact, like the queen-like one and only ruler. She was king's wife, and that's how she introduced herself, and that's how her husband introduced herself in like his reliefs on his stele. And it's like a life-size statue of this outstanding woman with this inscription saying that I am Napirasu, wife of Untash Napirisha, and then invocating the deities, the gods and goddesses of Elam to protect this statue. And it means that she indeed had enough power to erect this beautiful piece of art in her honor, not anyhow going deeper to describe some actions of her husband or something like that. It was dedicated to her specifically, and we also have one more case which is quite popular in service of the Elamite art, which is the way how one of the following rulers of Elam, of like the next dynasty, Shutrukid dynasty, King Shilhakan Shushanak, presented his family members, including his wife, Nahuntutu, and lots of his children. He had like really lots of them. He had 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. And when he was establishing some sort of a building or temple or like other pieces of art, he generally put some sort of encryption on them, and in his inscriptions he usually listed all of his family members, mentioning that this gate or like this statue, this wall knob, whatever, this piece of art is created for the light, for the duration of the life, for the health of course, like the king himself, and like his wife and his children, and then he lists his sons and daughters, and sometimes he arranged their names, mentioning his sons first, then the daughters, but on the other reliefs, on the other like examples, we can find a different situation where he lists these names from the elder children to like youngest ones, and in this case they all like go in a random order, both like the girls, the boys, it doesn't that matter, and like, he actually valued his daughters quite a lot. And we even have one more specific artifact, piece of jewelry, a small pebble with a relief, indicating that it was a gift from the king to his daughter, with their family portrait of him and his daughter. And after that, his oldest son, came to power, and in his inscription, he was quite an unfortunate king, honestly. He at some point he had to flee from Susa to Anshan, to the mountains, because the Babylonians just like destroyed everything. But anyways, we have some inscriptions left from him, and he writes that he's like glorious ruler and so on and so forth. And he dedicates his works to his life, and he was not married apparently, to the life of his mother and to the life of his sister, one of his sisters, like the elder one. So in terms of family connections, women, girls, didn't they indeed like play their role?
Very interesting. What kind of society is Elam? Is it primarily based on farming, or what's from an economic perspective? How does Elam operate?
Sure, it's agricultural. All of the societies were agricultural at the time. but thanks to their maintenance location, they were pretty good in mining, in getting some precious metals, some precious stones, and which also turned out to be a product of trade. But as for some like general characteristics of economy, of course, it is an agricultural economy, and I'd even say that a communist Persia, which is portrayed as like a pinnacle, as one of the most glorious chapters of ancient Middle Eastern history, is of course an agricultural society too, in terms of the way how it operated, because it's such the times were.
Obviously, you are dedicating your life to this research, and on a daily basis you deal with these matters. But it is fascinating to see that you have some Russian audience. It is normal for me to understand that Iranians are interested in what you do, but why are Russians interested in what you
do? Why not? Because normally we get focused on something for a whole variety of reasons, and it could be either because something seems close to us, or vice versa, something exotic. And I think that for most part of my Russian audience, all these pages of history, all these civilizations are something that is far from their daily life, and in some way it might be some sort of both extending and like expanding their like worldview, coming across something that lies far from their daily life perspective, getting some new like experience, like new idea of what the humanity went through, or maybe some sort of next some, I don't know, escapist like paradigm, because in our daily life it's reassuring to look at something that that doesn't have any practical use. I'd say that won't make you rich, that won't I don't know, that something purely cultural, purely aesthetical, this sort of things, and that's why global audience, and regardless like where what's their like geographies, get so obsessed with like ancient history in general, ancient like studies, classical studies, ancient Egypt, and I think that Iran and Mesopotamia are part of this field, and the motivation is pretty much the same: to forget about daily routine and open something new.
Are you planning to publish any books or anything about your findings?
Not soon, definitely. Right now, I'm just like enjoying the process of learning and creating. I let my research in art evolve in a natural way, and I'd love to keep exploring like new ways to bridge the ancient and modern. Maybe even like collaborate with someone. But I really hope that it it includes sharing these lesser known cultures with a wider audience in this or that way. So maybe at some point